We received a new beehive kit from a company called Beetech. We're going to unbox it, I'll show you how to assemble it, and I'll give you my impressions along the way. If you're not interested in the assembly steps, I'll include chapters so you can skip ahead to my conclusions. They said they've included a surprise for me, so I can't wait to see what it is. Let's get started. You only need 4 things to get this job done. A box cutter or a knife so we can open up all the packaging, a hammer so we can drive the thin nails that hold the frames together, a screwdriver or electric drill with a Phillips head bit so we can put the screws in that hold the boxes together, and glue. Glue some might consider to be an optional step, but I think you'd regret skipping this step as it holds the frames together nicely. I use and recommend wood glue, but craft glue works in a pinch. The last optional recommendation I have is something to cover your floor so it doesn't get messy from glue, paint, scratches, or wax. If you're assembling a wax-coated hive from another supplier, I don't really consider this to be optional. That wax gets everywhere. It's marked as heavy, and they're not really joking. But that's the nature of a beehive kit. It's nice that they double boxed it and included extra packaging. Comes with a user manual, has some instructions on there. That can be pretty handy, but we're going to show you exactly how to do this anyway. This is the plastic foundation for the medium size frames and the plastic foundation for the deep frames. These are feet for the bottom of the hive and also traps. These are the side pieces for the medium frames. The side pieces for the deep frames. These are the tops of both the deep and the medium frames. They're all the same size on the tops and the bottoms. And here's the bottom wood for the frames. There's our hardware, our nails, our screws, and the latches to close the observation windows. All of the box material is all strapped all together. We'll just take that out as a package. Finally, our queen excluder. I like to stay organized in pretty much all aspects of my life, but especially a project like this with many parts. So I've organized it all into the box materials over here, our small pieces of hardware over here. These are our medium frame materials, our deep frame materials, and then the tops and bottoms for both of the frames. My impressions on the packaging, to be honest, I didn't expect to say anything about the packaging. It's a bunch of wood inside of a box. Really, how good could it be? But comparing to the other hive set that I received from a different company, this is a step up. So they double boxed it, first of all. They added extra paper packaging between the 2 boxes so it doesn't jostle around so much. They have used these heavy plastic bands around all the materials to keep them together. The other place that I ordered from just had lightweight rubber bands barely holding it together, and many of the rubber bands had already broken. It was fine, but this is definitely a noticeable step up. And one thing that I appreciate too is they wrapped the foundations in plastic because they're coated in wax and that wax gets everywhere. So I appreciate the extra mile they've gone into packaging, and actually quite surprised to be impressed by some packaging. As I've mentioned before, I'm a new beekeeper with only 2 hives. But the 2 hives that I show in my other videos, those were purchased assembled from a local beekeeping store. To get ready for spring though, I've purchased about 6 other boxes unassembled from a large supplier that many of you are familiar with, but that I won't name here. I'll be comparing these boxes with that experience throughout my review. I'll start by putting some of the bottom pieces over here, and we'll assemble it as we go. One thing I noticed right away, despite all the good packaging, I do have a bit of damage on the bottom board. You can see a bit of the crack right there. Not sure what happened, but something during the assembly process, the wood got cracked, and you can see that it's splitting. Not a huge deal, and I expect the bees will fill that with propolis anyway. There's our inner cover, and we'll set that aside till later. Pieces for our painted medium. Set that aside for later. Here's our observation window for the medium. And here are the pieces for the deep. There's our entrance reducer and our top cover. Again, unfortunately, you can see there's been some damage here to the top cover. It's held together with staples, which is probably typical, but it has really pulled away a lot right here. That's despite the really good packaging that I saw. So I'm a little bit surprised at this. Probably an easy fix, but disappointed that it showed up like this. Let's start by assembling the deep. There are two matching opposite pieces. Make sure that the handles, the lip, is upward on all four sides. And there's the lip. This one doesn't have a lip because it's the observation window, so we have to match up the dovetail joints with the other pieces. These can really only fit one way, and they are just press fit. You can see it's pretty easy to fit that in there. I can do it with them standing up, but if it's giving you some trouble, just lay it down and give it a good press that way. I'm going to leave the observation window cover off for now, because we have to install the latches a little bit later. Now that the four pieces are together, we're going to put some screws in the pre-drilled pilot holes. Make sure you don't over tighten the screws or you might split the wood. You can kind of see I might have gone a little far on that one. You can see a tiny crack. It might just be a little bit of the paint, but just a reminder to be careful. Flip it to the other side. 6 more screws. The box assembled. Let's take care of the observation window. This part's straightforward. Got our cute little knob that we just screw on. There we go. Now we're going to put our latches on so that we can close it and secure it. There are again pre-drill holes. Be careful not to tighten that too much or you'll have trouble turning the latch. And now we'll take off the plastic, which is on the inside. Another good thing that they did, covering the plastic window with this plastic film just to make sure it doesn't get scratched in transit. With the deep assembled, now we're going to move on to the medium. It's the exact same process, just with smaller pieces. The medium box has 4 screws on each side, so a total of 8. So ironically, the plastic that was supposed to protect the observation window seems to have left some goo behind. That's unfortunate. Really weird, because the other observation window didn't have that issue. I don't know if you can see in the observation window there, kind of that ripple effect that's there. That's from the plastic coating that was meant to protect the observation window. It seems to come off with some elbow grease. I didn't have to do this with the other window, so it's kind of strange. I'm actually not having a lot of success here. I'm going to try alcohol. Let's see if good old isopropyl alcohol does the trick. Definitely improves somewhat, but it doesn't look like I'm really going to get all of that off. If you really care to try, maybe Gooby Gone or something, but it's good enough for me. Just as I was about to move on, I realized there's a whole lot more screws to be put in here. As I said before, I had experience assembling other hives, and that one only had screws going from one side into the other wood, and this one has screws going both directions. So that's pretty good. I expect it to be very secure. I'm going to go through and put the rest of the screws in there, hopefully until all the screws are gone. So there are double the screws as what I had in the other hive. So something that I noticed about this joint is when I put these screws in, it wasn't quite lined up. The pilot holes, I think, were just slightly off. And so this was lifted up. What I've done now is I've taken those 3 screws out, and because I just discovered that there's additional screws on this side, then I'm going to put those screws in first to keep it nice and tight, and then put these back in. 2 boxes are done. My overall impression for the boxes is quite good. What I liked about it is the actual wood itself. There are very small knots in there, and there are none near the joints. So I wouldn't expect any issues with connecting the joints. Also, what I really like is there are a ton of screw holes that they've provided. Comparing to the other hive kit that I got, there are twice as many screw holes on this hive kit as there was on the other one. So with the extra screws that are putting this hive together, I really don't expect it to ever come apart. It's really solid. The joints are really well put together. They fit really nicely. I only had some minor issues with one of the joints that I really had to bang it in, but otherwise they were very smooth getting in there. Another minor issue that I had that might have been my problem is when I was getting the joints together and I screwed in one side of the screws and it lifted up a little bit too high. I thought maybe the joint didn't align, but when I instead screwed the other screws, it brought it in much tighter and gave a much better joint. So I was able to fix that issue. And again, it might have been just my issue, I don't know. I've noticed a couple of minor quality issues here and there. There was, like here on the paint, you can see where it got smudged up and scraped up a little bit. Not a big deal. I did see a couple of places where there were missing countersinks. Again, not a big deal. It just makes your screws stand out a little bit more. And a painted box like this, you're going to paint it anyway. So these are things that you're really not going to care much about. Getting to the paint though, whoo, that's a whole lot of paint on there. And I do appreciate that because these are going to be sitting outside in all the weather. So you can tell, like just the feel of it, there's a whole lot of paint on there. And even the part that's scratched, you can tell it didn't go all the way down. And if it's a couple of coats of paint or one very, very thick coat of paint, I don't know. But I can tell that it's going to last a very long time. So I appreciate that for sure. Compared to the other hives that I purchased, one set was waxed hives, and time will tell how that works out. The other one is painted, but it does seem to be more like a primer paint. This feels more like an exterior, maybe a latex-based paint. It's very smooth feeling, so I do like the finish quite a lot. Pretty much the rest of the box is fairly standard. The dovetail joints, standard to these types of boxes. The size, of course, is standard. The rails, nothing much to be said. So a lot of this just seems to be pretty standard. The handles have a nice deep lip to it that you can grab onto easily. And yeah, the rest of it seems pretty good. You saw earlier, I also had some issues with the observation window on one of them. So this one here, you can see it has some issues from the plastic wrap that was on the inside, which was meant to protect it, and actually kind of smudged it up a little bit. Wasn't very successful getting that off of there. I tried both water and alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and it didn't really come off. Not that big of a deal. You can still see very clearly through there, so I'm not terribly worried about it, but less than ideal. Overall, definitely a solid box. I think the most important thing about this and about any hive is that I expect it's going to last a very long time. Before we move on to assembling the frames, I want to talk a little bit about my relationship with Beetech. They reached out to me after watching some of my beekeeping videos and asked me if I wanted to do an unboxing video for their product, for their beehive kit. And after double checking that they're a completely legitimate company, I agreed. There's also in the video description, you'll find a discount code that you can use to apply to their products. So the discount code, in addition to the compensation I get with that, and the free beehive kit is the entirety of the compensation that I receive. There's no other promises provided aside from this unboxing video and an honest review of their product. And I really do want to emphasize my reviews will always be honest. Now let's get back to our assembly. Let's get the pieces for our frames. We're going to do the medium frames to begin with. The basic frame assembly is like this. You have two long pieces. One of them is slightly longer than the other. The longer one is going to be the top part, and this part right here is what actually rests on the rails. It's slightly longer. And this is the bottom part. You'll notice both of them have a slot there in the middle, and this is where the plastic foundation will go. So make sure that that faces inward. These two are the sides, and they're both identical. You can't mix them up. However, make sure that you're grabbing the right size for the right size box. These are shorter than the other ones I have over there. So these are for the medium, while those are for the deep. The tops and the bottoms are the same size for both the medium and the deep. So you can't mix those up. So these are going to go like this. The wider fork is going to go at the top like this, and the smaller fork is going to be here at the bottom. So in the end, of course, you'll have a rectangle and your foundation will be in the middle. So let's take this apart again because we want to add our glue and our nails to hold it together. So I find it easier to assemble my frames upside down. That is, take the top part with the slot facing upward and have that be solidly on the floor. Grab my wood glue, take one of the sides and your wood glue, and you don't need a whole lot, but you're going to place it right there in that little fork. See, not a whole lot is really needed. Just a dab will do ya. The other side. And this is the bottom, because our frame is upside down. This is going to go just like this, but remember, we need our foundation. Don't forget that. You can smell the wax. Grabbing one sheet of foundation, you're going to put that in the slot. It should stay, shouldn't really flop over, or maybe it does. So when you put your foundation in the slot, it may kind of flop over, and that's okay. Just let it stay there for a little while you apply glue to the bottom piece. And again, you only need a very little bit. If you overdo it, it's just going to make a mess and not really benefit you that much. So now that you have your glue on there, make sure you turn it around so that the slot is facing towards the foundation. And this is where you kind of feel like you need an extra hand, because you want to press this down on both sides and also make sure that the foundation is in place. That can kind of be a challenge sometimes. And just double check that it's in the slot on both sides. It should be able to freely move about in there, but it's also in the slot on both sides. Now we're not quite done. We need to apply the nails. I brought a little stool. Anything with a solid surface is going to help you out here. So here's the nails they've provided. Comparing to the other kit that I had installed, these nails are larger. That can both be a good thing and a bad thing. Good in the way that it may be stronger, but bad in the challenge of putting it in there may cause splits a little bit more likely. So just be very conscious of the fact of where you're placing the nail in relation to the wood that's under it, making sure that you're really driving it straight and that it's not going at an angle, because with a nail this size in wood so thin, you're fairly likely to split it sometimes. And we have 20 frames to do, so I'm likely to split at least one of them. Luckily, we have that glue in place also, so even if we split a little bit, the wood's going to be held in place by all of that glue. You may not be able to see it, but as I feared, the size of the nail a little bit large and did cause a little bit of splitting. I'm not concerned about it. It is well glued in there as well, so we're double safe. I'm not afraid of this coming apart. There you have it. One frame of 20 complete. This is for the top, medium. Fits in there just nicely. I got 19 more to go. I'm going to put you on fast forward. So here's one pro tip for efficiency. I like to take care of as much gluing as I possibly can before I move on to nailing. So I'll probably do about 5 frames at a time, maybe even 10 if I was assembling a lot of these boxes. The glue takes a while to set, so I'm not afraid of it drying before I get the nails in there. So here's another tip that I just learned while assembling this. Sometimes it could be a pain when you're putting in the foundation and it just kind of flops back and forth, and you have to grab the other piece, get glue on it, make sure it's on there right and aligned with the foundation. And you can stop it from flopping if you just give the outsides, just give it a little squeeze to put some tension on that foundation, and you should find that it stands up upright just fine. And then you can leave it alone and focus on putting your bottom piece on and gluing it up. Well, that thing doesn't go anywhere. Okay, I have 9 frames glued up, and now I'm ready to put some nails on there. The 10 frames for the medium are now complete, all assembled and in the box. The 10 deep frames is going to be exactly the same. The only difference is the sides are larger than the medium as well as the foundation. So those are the only 2 differences. Assembly wise, they are identical. So I'm going to fast forward you through this part as well. My impression of the frames is fine. I think everything about them is fairly standard. There's nothing really that stands out about them, which is totally fine and acceptable for a beehive kit. The foundation itself seems solid. You can definitely feel the tackiness of the wax that's applied there. I'm not a very good judge about, is it a lot? Is it not enough? I don't really know. I think all beekeepers agree that even if you have pre-waxed frames like these are, everyone seems to agree that you want to always apply more, which encourages bees to make comb and just makes them accept the frames a lot quicker than if you had very little wax on there. So I'll be doing that probably later during the winter when I have a lot less time and not going to be doing any gardening or not much beekeeping. That's probably a good time for me to apply some more wax. You can probably dip the foundations in wax before you assemble them. That's probably an option. I don't have that much wax, so I'll probably be applying it with a roller a little bit later, which I think uses a little bit less wax. The only other thing that stands out about these frames are the nails. I mentioned earlier, I think the nails are a larger gauge than the other kits that I have assembled. That stands out just a little bit, and as I mentioned, that's both good and bad. It's good in that you might think that it makes the foundation, or it makes the frame stronger, but it's challenging in that you're more likely to split the wood. I definitely split maybe 5 times when assembling this. It's not more or less than the other kit that I was working on. I think that's often the nature of assembling these until you get used to it, you get some experience. But I do think that they're probably a little bit larger than they need to be, which is okay, that's fine. But yeah, pretty standard frames. Now with everything screwed, glued, and pieced together, we're just going to put on the final touches to assemble the rest of the kit. This is the queen excluder that came with it. Typically you would put that between your brood box and your honey supers, just like that. I don't use a queen excluder just yet. I don't really have an opinion on them. It seems to be a very contentious topic between beekeepers. But for now, I'm just going without them. And so we're just going to set this aside. We're going to add our inner cover. One thing that I notice about the inner cover, the other kits that I have, they have a slot on one side of it where you can have another entrance for the bees and also for ventilation. And this inner cover doesn't have that. I haven't really used it a whole lot, so it doesn't bother me that it's not there. Now the final outer cover or top cover, and I mentioned earlier that this one has a little bit of damage. So before I put that on there, I'm going to give this a little bit of glue and hammer it in, and hopefully that puts it back together. So let me go get those materials. very easy, very minor repair. Of course, would have preferred that damage didn't exist, but it is not a big deal. This observation window, it's very similar to other hives that I've seen in terms of size, cost, and even function. They usually have these kind of levers to take the cover off to see through the window. One thing to really note is some sellers, they market this as a way to, as an alternative to a hive inspection, and it most certainly is not. You can only see one frame through this window, the outermost frame. So it is not an alternative to a hive inspection. You definitely want to take off the cover and get inside and see what else is going on. But I will say it could be useful, in particular for a super, if you're looking to see, have the bees completely built out the entire super? Are they ready to expand? I think that could be very useful to just open the window, take a peek, and if they haven't built anything on the last frame yet, well, then you still have some time before they fill up this box. So it could be useful in that regard, and for sure the other way, if you have kids that are somewhat afraid of bees, even if they have their suit on, this could be a nice gentle way to approach the bees, both for the bees because they are not agitated, you're not pulling them out of the frames, you're not lifting up the covers, you're just peeking inside, and also for the kid, can just peek in there and not really get too close if they're very skittish and afraid of the bees. So for those two reasons, I think it can be very useful, but for sure not an alternative to an actual hive inspection. So let's talk about the surprise they gave me. I don't know what it is. So it did come with these feet. I was surprised that it came with that. So it could be that. It also came with this very fancy beekeeping log with a dry erase marker. And this is kind of like a whiteboard. And you can put all information on there and you can tack it to your hive. There's something on the back as well if you want to provide information about your individual frames. So this could be the surprise, not really sure. But so this is an interesting addition, this beekeeping log. I don't think it's something that I'll use. I only have 2 hives. If I had 50 hives, maybe this would become more important, but I know my hives pretty well because there's only 2 of them. So I can't not know them very well. There's only 2. So I don't expect to really use this too much. And if I was to use it, I would probably get 50 of them. The other thing that I didn't expect, but I'm really happy about, these little feet. So these are to be placed underneath the hive. So these are for support. The hive rests on top of them. There's 4 of them here. And that's good to get it, so it's not sitting on the ground, sitting in moisture. So that's good if you don't have an alternative. Mine are sitting on blocks and wooden 2x4s, so I don't really need it for that purpose. But you can see that this thing comes apart. Inside you place water and you place this on top. And this also prevents things like ants from getting into your hive. So I'm going to find a way to make this work with my blocks and my 2x4s. I really want to use these because I'm experiencing ants lately. Especially lately, I've been feeding the bees sugar water, and the ants love sugar, so they've been crawling up into the feeder and getting at the sugar water there. So I would like to prevent the ants from taking all of that. So I'm going to give these a try and try to make it work. These retail for about $8 per set. So that is a really nice bonus to include. I didn't get this with any of the other hive kits that I've ordered. So this was a very happy surprise. So I'm anxious to try this out. I don't know if it's something that I would have purchased, so I'm extra happy to try something out for free. Let's talk about their site and their prices. They have their own individual site. It's you can order their products on there, but they also have an Amazon store, and I'll put both of those links in the description. I would recommend the Amazon store for a number of reasons. But first of all, there's a whole lot more information on their Amazon store as far as their products go. So many more images than there's available on their their website. And of course, we all know and trust Amazon, so it's probably going to be the better place for you to order. Price-wise, they're both the same between their site and the Amazon store. This one retails for $160. That's what's currently listed on their Amazon store, and that's on par with what I have ordered from other places, including the ones with the observation window. I compared this to another big name, and it's the exact same price with the observation window. And the other one was a waxed style beehive kit. And my own preference, I actually really like the painted beehive instead. So overall, it's very much comparable to the other hives that are available. Another thing that I like, they included their little sticker logo that you can place on the side of the beehive, but I really appreciate that they didn't place it on the actual beehive. I prefer not to put logos on my beehives, and I have purchased from other places that they put those logos on there, and you can't take them off. So I have a couple of hives that forever will have their logo on there. So I appreciate them keeping that separate. Although I appreciate them, I don't really want their logo on my hives. I want to paint these with pretty colors. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this hive. I will definitely be using it in the spring for the apiary. And as far as materials and quality and price and assembly process, all of these things are very much comparable to a lot of the big names that are out there, the big suppliers. So if you're looking for an alternative to those big name brands, I would definitely recommend giving them a try. Some of the things that I really appreciated is that thick coat of paint on there. I really expect that paint to last forever. And especially because I'm probably going to paint on top of this in some, fun colors or something. So that amount of paint on there, I expect the wood to last a very long time. And also very much appreciate these little feet. I hope that this is going to stop my little ant problem that I've been having lately. And I don't know what impact it has on, potentially other pests. So I'm interested to see how they work. If this works out, then I'll be purchasing these for all of my hives, because I would very much like to stop all the ants from getting into my sugar water. I am grateful to Beetech for this opportunity and for the free hive kit. I mean, I love free stuff. I hope this review helps you make a decision whether or not to choose this product. I also hope that the assembly process and tips and tricks that I showed you along the way can help you, especially if you've never assembled a hive kit before. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time on FaewoodAcres.